think it's right time now in the trip to actually talk about the van, because we've just done half of the North Island. We didn't want to do a van review too early because we wanted to feel the van a bit more and get used to it before we started to make comments on it. So sort of, as we're coming off North Island, I think we spent enough time in the van to understand it a bit more. So we first of all look at our requirements. When we were looking for this trip, and we knew we could go for a budget van, but that wasn't what we needed, because we wanted 2 vans to start off with. We needed 2 separate vans. We decided we wanted to not be in one van together.
We didn't want to traumatise Roger and Caroline too much.
Yeah. I mean, we could have gone at the sort of the budget end, the small end, and if it was just the 2 of us travelling, we could have done that. But we were going to go for a longer trip. This was a 4-week trip, so we wanted a bit of comfort, to be perfectly honest. Also, because there's 4 of us, we wanted to make sure that a single van was big enough to sit down 4 people for evening meal. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had that group feeling in a van. So that was quite important to get a van that was big enough to do that. But also, we didn't want a massive van, so this is a balance thing. We didn't want to drive a big van anyway, because we didn't know at the time how easy it was to park up and all that type of thing, and what the roads were like. The other thing was we wanted to go for an automatic, just in case you wanted to drive. But I was used to an automatic. Roger less so. He's used to a manual, but was happy to have an automatic. So we decided we wanted to go for two automatics. There was loads of van companies out there. It's obviously big business out in New Zealand. They rely on this tourist feed quite a bit, and when we were driving around, you see lots of different sort of vans.
So you just like every other car was a van.
And
then when you saw one from the same company,
and some of them were bright coloured green, and
so
there was all sorts that we could have choose from. And so we could go at the budget end, or we went slightly higher. And so we went for a more qualitative outfit more than anything else. I think reputation, we did a lot of research, and reputation was important. So watching reviews of all that was important to us. So we did all the usual research on that. We came across a company called Wilderness, went on the website. That's where we started with it, didn't we? And it all felt good. And you could easily get a quote, you could easily get a van. So we got some quotes initially off that, and it felt right. I was quite happy with the layout. I think the key things for us. They were good
at communication as well, weren't they?
Yeah. So as soon as we got into more formal with them, they were very quick in response. Obviously, they're trying to sell something, but they were very good at responding and how they responded, not to pushing us too hard with it. We were just trying to make our decision up, because they've got a variety of models of vans. So Wilderness, their background was actually a family business, which I always connect to. I think they were established in 2004 or something like that. So it's very much family run, which is always a good sign, because they're passionate about the business. They need to make it work. They got 2 locations. There's a location in North Island, South Island. So there's Auckland, where we were flying into, and there's Christchurch. So you could fly into Christchurch, etc., or you could pick up in Auckland and drop off in Christchurch, or vice versa. They were quite flexible how you do that. They had a lot of resources actually on the site, didn't they? They had a lot of guides that helped us actually when we were initially thinking, what does the trip look like? That was a starting point for us. So we used that quite a bit actually to look at their proposed routes, etc. So overall, for the 29 nights, it was just for the van itself, for getting all the extras, it was about $9,100 New Zealand dollars, so whatever that converts to. So it's about £5,000, something like that. That was a couple of years ago when we booked it, you remember, because we were booking and travelling. So I know the prices has gone through the roof, because since then the whole global economy went through the roof. So you'd have to go and check those prices out, because I think they've probably gone up considerably.
But everything has, so
everything's gone up. So you'd have to look at that. But we were happy with that price for the 29 nights we did. The other things they did with extra point of view, they did arrange, you could do this yourself, but they arranged the ferry for us. It was just a one-stop shop for us. They organised the ferries there and back. That saved us a load of hassle. They knew what to get. We also went for the extra insurance that they offer on the website. From a van choice, they had, I think, several models anyway, from small up to an elite type van, depending on the size and if you got family, etc. So they had a good choice. They were more expensive, as I said, than others. So what we eventually went for was their smallest model, to be perfectly honest, because it suited us. It was a compact 2. for two. It had a fixed bed, which was, I think, something that we wanted to try because we haven't had a fixed bed. So there's a couple of things we wanted to try.
Yeah, so there was a couple of things, I won't lie, that it gave us a chance to see
what it feels like.
If Harry was out.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and along with that, it had a toilet and shower, which again was something different for us. Yeah, and it was obviously a motorhome, which was different to us. So it was a 2-litre diesel. So it was definitely a bigger van than what we're used to. It's automatic, 6-speed automatic. And the vans are less than 4 years old, so they're fairly new. So again, we knew we weren't going to pick up a tired van. And the key thing is we needed to be in it for 29 nights. So as I said, we needed to have we felt we wanted some level of comfort anyway. So the van was just under 6 metres long. It was 2.5 metres high or something like that. And I think it was 2 metres inside. So it was easily, you could stand up in it. And I think it was about 2.5 metres wide as well. And we weren't sure how big the roads were out in New Zealand, but as you can see, they're actually, even the back roads, they were quite wide, even though there was landslides and things like that, and at times there was narrow bridges. We'd never at the moment felt as though that was an issue to us. Obviously, from an outside of the van perspective, you got your cassettes, you got your water, you got your LPG tanks, and the LPG tanks, they got the bigger tank, I want to say 8 kilograms and a 4 kilogram. So, you know, the smaller one is if you run out, you can quickly swap over, which would have been useful. We actually so far haven't used that much LPG, but LPG, as you'll see, will actually also do the heating and also can do the aircon. I can imagine that would use quite a bit of gas up if you started to use that. We didn't need to use it in the end. Some off-road type tyres, or the tyres were fairly chunky, so that was pretty good for, because some of the roads we've obviously found that actually there were tracks, not roads. The roads will suddenly stop, and as you can see on the waterfall we've just been to, that suddenly became a track, and
bizarre,
you needed it.
Yeah. You'd be driving along this great road and then it just stopped, and you're like, have we gone wrong somewhere?
So I think to get to some of these places, especially I guess if it's raining and that, where the tyres are going to skid, you do need something that's probably a bit, otherwise you're going to be able to have to stick to probably the main roads a bit. I don't know. There was a large garage at the back, which was really useful because obviously that's where we put our suitcases. I think we could have arranged to leave our suitcases with them, but I think they were more hesitant on that. Yeah, so but there was loads of room in the garage, and obviously in the garage there was the pipes for the grey waste and also for the fresh water, as well as the barbecue, etc. So there's plenty of room in the garage.
Kitted out,
and we're not used to a garage, so that was something something used to just shove stuff in there, and that was pretty good. And obviously there's the electric hookup for when you're on sites and that. So it was geared that way. The only thing we were slightly surprised about, it didn't have any solar panels, did it?
No.
Which we were slightly surprised at. So if you wanted to be a long-term off-grid, I think that could be a challenge if you're starting to use a lot of the power-up of the devices inside and that. I think you'd probably do 2, pushing 3 days if you were careful, but it didn't have any replenishment when you were just parked up. It was more, it'll all charge you up when you're on the road, but it wasn't a problem because we were moving. It wasn't a problem to us. So if we go inside, the driver's cab, I think we both enjoyed the driving.
Yeah, it was really
it was high up, as you'd expect. The seating was very comfortable, with armrests on both sides. Harry's only got it on the left side, so we were a bit sport with driving along that way. And I think the whole experience of driving was really nice because it also had a panoramic window.
Yeah, we enjoyed the extra space, didn't we?
Yeah. So there was the auto box, which was a bit, compared to Harry, I have to say it was a bit of a sloppy box, but I'm aware of that based on the Fiat Ducato. But it was Roger particularly had a few problems trying to get it going. It felt a bit of a technique to get it into drive and into reverse and all that.
Got used to it.
We got there with it, but it wasn't a tight box. Let's put it that way. But the engines pulled perfectly up the hills, and there wasn't an issue with driving. We never felt as though we couldn't drive up a hill, and that it actually pulled quite well. So from a driving perspective, as I said, there's no sat nav. That did throw us. I don't think they have an option to have a sat nav, so be prepared for that.
I wonder why that is.
I just assumed it would have an onboard sat nav on the Fiat Ducato, but it hadn't. Unfortunately, obviously, like all of us, we've got our phones and we use Google Maps, and that's just be aware of that. I don't know if there's an option. I didn't see one when I've looked on the website, so I don't think there is. Also, there's a reversing camera, which obviously is absolutely a must for me. Reversing, which I got on okay with, to be perfectly honest. I certainly didn't knock it anyway. It was quite light and airy. I think that was the other thing. I said it had 2 skylights. It had the windows on the kitchen side, the windows on the table side. So that was quite good.
It was weird walking up and down, like having the space to walk up and down.
Yeah.
So you don't do that in Harry.
Nah. I mean, the seats swivel around there, so the captain's chairs turn round because they form the 4 seats. And that was the other thing we said we wanted. We need to be able to sit down at night because we wanted to have dinner together and we wanted to play a game or chat or whatever it was. And the table slid out, which was actually quite good. It just gave you extra 6 or 8 inches and that, which was quite good. So that whole seating, I think, worked quite well, didn't it? But at night you just pulled the cab curtains around. There was enough privacy there, shut out the lights and that. So the entry door, obviously the van's quite high up, so there is a step, but it's an electric step, which was
we like that.
We like that a lot.
Yeah. Harry didn't have one.
Yeah, what he has now.
He has now.
Yeah. So that sort of got us into using electric step, and I must say it was really,
well, you couldn't
really
have got
useful.
in and out if you didn't have that step.
Especially it could have been a manual step. That's what I mean. Though. So at the back there was the fixed bed. It was in the same space, so it wasn't in a separate room. I don't think that bothered us, and that because we were travelling on our own. It did have a curtain that came round at night if you wanted some extra darkness or privacy at night.
Which I liked because I liked the darker.
Yeah.
Stu wasn't that keen, so we ended up putting it halfway.
Yeah, I felt a bit more claustrophobic with it.
Yeah, whereas it didn't bother me.
We always have that battle with it. Storage was pretty good. The bottom line is we're only taking 23 kilograms each in the suitcase anyway, so you haven't got a lot of stuff. But it had loads of storage around the main area, but also above. What I found quite useful for the camera equipment is above the cab. They had like open racks, if you like, and it was just so easy to put stuff up there. I found that really useful, to be honest. Then there was the toilet and shower, which was quite a great design. The sink swung out, and it was well designed, and it was a wet room, and then you swung the seat back and all that. But what do you think?
Well, we came away because this was our biggest question: is would we like a shower and a toilet in a vehicle? And the answer's absolutely not. It was a bloody nightmare. At the end, we both had a shower just because we wanted to say we had a shower.
Yeah. I think we might have used it more if we were wild camping a bit. We possibly would have done because we were having showers on sites because we were going to more sites.
Turn around, didn't you think?
And I think it's not just that; you've got to wipe it down, and it just became.
It was more hassle
work
than it was worth.
Yeah.
And the only thing it was good for is putting the towels up.
Yes,
it was good for that.
And
but that's quite an expensive room to get.
Yeah, exactly. And I do think that if there's something that's missing out of a van like Harry, I'd think about is like almost a drying cupboard where it was enough to have wet stuff, but that's all you need it for, nothing else. So when it comes down to the heating and the cooker side, there was a controller that allowed you to flip between. So you could choose where it was taking the power off. So there was aircon first of all, and that could be gas or from the battery. So you could switch to that. And the same with the heating. You could choose to be off the LPG or the battery, and obviously you could protect the battery a bit, especially with no solar. You could protect the battery by using gas, which is relatively really cheap out there, to be honest. So we didn't. I don't think we had the aircon on.
No, I don't think we did either.
I think we had the heating on a couple of times, but not much at all. We didn't feel as though when we were travelling. We didn't feel as though we needed it.
The
right time of the year, isn't it? Yeah. So we didn't really need it, but it was there if you needed it.
Yeah.
So from a cooking perspective, there was the gas rings on top, and then there was the sink and tap as usual, and then there was an oven, which was new for us.
Yeah, I would have loved an oven in Harry. I mean, it just opened a whole new way of cooking, didn't it?
Yeah, there was things that we wouldn't have been able to cook that we could cook, especially when there's 4 of you, because it's a bit more difficult with when you're trying to cook purely on the stove top for 4 of you. It was really
good having the oven.
It gave us a lot more flexibility. Yeah, and there's things because we bought pies and things like that you could warm with pies that would be more difficult, especially when you're cooking for 4. Don't forget. So we used it quite a bit, to be perfectly honest. It was really good.
That is the one thing Like, Harry's not going anywhere,
Yeah.
but that's the one thing that if I could have, I would have.
Oh, there's still, with the cooking, we also had a couple of nights, which was, I'm glad we did, because it was really nice. We hired just the one barbecue. We didn't need 2 barbecues between the vans, and we've had a couple of nights, and that was really nice. We really enjoyed the cooking on the barbecue. It was a really good barbecue they supplied as well. It wasn't just a cheap one; it was a real good one as well. And we just used the small 4 kilogram gas that was on board for that when we were doing that. From an aftercare point of view, once we had a good handover with them when we left Auckland, but they gave us a service number if we had a problem with the van, and we did have problems with the vans, or I didn't. Roger had a red light to get coming on, which is, because I follow YouTube channels, I often see the Ducato being a bit temperamental with the red light coming on. But he called in, and they called him back. They were really good. They were prepared to come out and reset, but I think they obviously knew it would probably disappear, and it did.
We didn't feel on our own, did we?
No, we didn't feel exposed. They would have definitely come out and had a look at it, and would have arranged to meet up, and they would have swapped the van if there was a problem. So I don't think there would have been any issue, and I think this is the difference. Possibly you've got to make sure you're with a company who are going to give you that service, and it doesn't disrupt the holiday too much.
Yeah.
So I think, as ever, the key answer is if you were to go out again, would we use Wilderness? I think the answer is
absolutely,
yes. They're highly recommended companies. They're really, really, really good. Really pleased with the service we got. I think if we went again and we were just on our own for 4 weeks, would we go in that motorhome, or would we go for a smaller motorhome that we saw around there? What would you do?
Probably a motorhome.
Yeah. I would actually go for the same size vehicle, weirdly enough, because now I know that the roads, the way they are, and the park-ups are big enough. For 4 weeks, I think it gives you a bit of extra comfort. I think it was a good van to tour around with, and it was easy to park because it wasn't so long. We managed to park on the high streets, didn't we? Because the parking was good. Even for me, I could just drive in there.
They're quite big though, the high streets, in fairness.
Yeah, we found parking really easy, even in the built-up areas. Let alone, it was obviously easier when you're out on the remote park-ups. But when you're in the cities and towns, I actually found it quite easy, which is unusual for me. So I think I'd go with the same one. I would.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd go. I thought whether I should go down to one of the small budget ones where you can't stand up or whatever, and I don't think I would.
No, we don't want to.
A fixed bed, no. Yeah. So I think if you're going all that way, go for a bit of luxury is my answer.
Well, if you can afford to get over there,
if you can afford to get there, you might as well go for the whole hog. So that's it. Yeah. So that's our van review. If you've got any questions, just put them in the comments. I'll answer them as best as I can.